Canadian regiment. But here in Upper Canada, much to the confusion of history students forever on, they just took a county name from up along the St. Lawrence River. That's where their main depot was, in Glengarry County. But there were a lot of Scotsmen who settled there, and originally the Glengarrys were going to be a kilted regiment. Cool. Highlanders. Until probably some bright Canadian lad said, "You do know we have mosquitoes the size of chihuahuas in this country, right?" And then, of course, in January and February, it gets very, very cold here. Not Scotland cold, Antarctica cold. So, the kilts didn't work out. And they actually adopted a uniform that was similar to a British rifleman back then. But the regiment came from all over Upper Canada. You got paid and treated just like a full-time British soldier, but you joined a fencible regiment. That came from the word defense. So it meant you didn't have to leave North America. You could be sent to fight in the United States if you were an attacking force, but you wouldn't be sent to Spain or South America or Africa to fight on behalf of the British Empire. So a lot of these green-jacketed lads, their dads had already worn green coats. Because during the Revolutionary War, from 1775 to 1783, many Loyalist regiments wore green uniforms. In fact, a good portion of the Niagara Peninsula was settled by Butler's Rangers, and Rangers wore green uniforms. Did offer some camouflage for reconnoitering the enemy. And a generation before that was Rogers Rangers, and they wore green as well. So a lot of these kids who enlisted in the Glengarrys were either recent Scottish immigrants, they were the sons and grandsons of Loyalists. So wearing a green Tory green coat was a family tradition. And even a few of the Glengarrys were slaves who had escaped the United States and came to Upper Canada for their freedom, and they put on a green jacket so they wouldn't be dragged back into slavery. So we have some of the New Brunswickers that come out of the tree line. Now they're wearing traditional red coats next to their Glengarry buddies. But they're fighting just like the Glengarry Light Infantry. Every British regiment, and most of the American regiments, had a light infantry company. These were supposed to be the fastest guys in the battalion, so they could run a little quicker. And they were usually the best marksmen. So they were the reconnaissance troops of your regiment. And they would go ahead of the rest of the line. And you'll notice most of those redcoats have a green hackle in their hats, and that signifies you're with the light company of a regular regiment. You'll also hear buglers. So the light infantry, instead of making the poor kid carry a big heavy drum, it was kind of hard to maneuver running through the woods, they just carry a bugle. And all the light infantry commands would be given out by a bugle. Whether to fire, retreat, advance, turn right, turn left, there was a bugle call for it. You'll also see some of the British and Canadian sergeants are carrying a whistle. This is going to sound crazy again 200 years later, but a Canadian infantry sergeant in the modern Canadian Army still carries a whistle. And again, over the noise of battle, if you want to tell your soldiers when to open fire, you get a whistle call, and that's the symbol, or the message to open fire on an enemy. So you have a bugle, and you have whistle calls that the troops have to memorize. At the Battle of Cook's Mills, the light infantry went at each other for a while. The American commander pushed more troops across Lions Creek, near the mills, to reinforce his skirmish line. And the British commander realized that there was an awful lot of Yankee soldiers there, so he started building up his skirmish line and sending in more of his regular companies and regiments to fight. had the New Brunswickers, you had the 82nd Foot, Regiment of Foot, the 100th Regiment of Foot, and on the American side, you had the 5th, the 14th, 15th, and 16th U.S. Infantry. As well, they also had some riflemen from the 4th U.S. Rifles. They were sort of the elite marksmen of the U.S. Army. So a rifle was like a musket, except it had rifling grooves on the inside. And those grooves would make the ball spiral out. So like a good quarterback, it threw a much more accurate ball out the end. But there was two big drawbacks to a rifled musket. A rifled musket took 3 times longer to load. So you had 3 times the accuracy, 3 times the range, but it took you 3 times longer to load. So once you got a sort of soccer field away from each other, the musket was just as good as the rifle for accuracy. But you could fire your smoothbore musket a lot faster than the rifleman could fire. The other problem is you can manufacture 4 muskets for the cost of 1 rifle. So they weren't going to give every soldier in the British Army or in the U.S. Army a rifle because it wasn't practical and it was way too expensive. So in the actual battle 200 years ago, the Americans did withdraw to the ravine that often had the nickname of Robin's Notch or Buckner's Hollow. Captain Buckner was the local militia captain in Cook's Mills. And it was in that hollow that the redcoats and the blue jackets would hammer away at each other on the morning of October the 19th, 1814. So the Americans withdrew into the ravine, but now it's going to be the British and Canadian guys who are going to find themselves up against masses of American infantry. And now you're going to start seeing traditional platoon tactics that the soldiers were drilled in and day out. But the Americans had learned their trade very well in the 3 years that the war had dragged on.